Back in December 2012, at the damn near height of Angry Birds' popularity, Rovio Entertainment officially announced that an Angry Bird feature film was in development, set to hit theaters in 2016. John Cohen, best known at the time for producing Despicable Me, was brought in as producer, a role he would go on to reprise in future installments. I think we can see the influence there. But we're not here to discuss the likes of those. Cohen famously remarked that he was already quite familiar with the brand, having poured countless hours into the games prior to joining the project. Or so he said. This marked Rovio's biggest landmark towards transforming Angry Birds into a full multimedia entertainment brand yet, which had been their ambition for a good few years at that point. They sought to prove to the world that Angry Birds was not merely an app on their smartphone. It was toys, it was books, it was cartoons, it was theme parks. It was every bit of Mickey Mouse, or perhaps Star Wars, as one of the world's leading entertainment brands. Casuals to the brand were skeptical that a movie could even be created out of such a game, as if you were simply familiar with the games or consumer products flooding retailers, then of course you wouldn't think there was a story.
Where does the story come from?
Yeah.
Like, where do you get the story from when you're making this?
And 2016 was a long way off in the grand scheme. Where would Angry Birds even be in 4 years? But hey, it was around this time that Rovio had launched Angry Birds Toons, testing their storytelling, characterization, and world-building acumen. There was also the comic series, as well as several books developing the world of Angry Birds, establishing the ground upon which the movie could soar from. In May 2013, the project became far more serious when Sony Pictures Entertainment won worldwide distribution rights for the movie after supposed competition from a few major studios. Rovio also confirmed that it would finance and produce the film by themselves, while Sony would handle global marketing and theatrical distribution. In hindsight, that was quite the undertaking. Only days later, John Vitti had joined the project as a screenwriter, coming from a comedic background, having worked on shows like King of the Hill and Saturday Night Live. The hiring strongly suggested the film would focus on comedy and humor, rather than simply adapting the gameplay mechanics from the mobile games, again squashing casual-minded prejudices. Fast forward about a year later, in October 2014, where Sony and Rovio officially unveiled the film's voice cast. Jason Sudeikis was cast as Red, most recognizable from Saturday Night Live. Josh Gad joined as Chuck, fresh off the enormous success of voicing Olaf in Frozen. Danny McBride voiced Bomb after becoming well known through Eastbound and Down in films like This Is the End. Bill Hader took on the role of Leonard, the de facto kingpin of the movie, while Maya Rudolph voiced Matilda. And Peter Dinklage, at the height of his popularity from Game of Thrones, voiced the Mighty Eagle. Somewhat ironically anyways. Marketing for the film finally began publicly in September 2015, when the first teaser trailer released online. The trailer heavily focused on Red's anger issues, beating up Billy and such, in front of the Infinity Acceptance Center. The full-fledged trailer would be uploaded in January 2016, this time recounting much of what the teaser had shown, but highlighted the Lake of Wisdom scene. Certainly my favorite branded water, by the way, just above dumbass water. And with all that backstory out of the way, after nearly 4 years of development, the Angry Birds movie finally released in theaters in May 2016, almost 7 years after the original Angry Birds mobile game first launched. Critically, the Angry Birds movie received fairly mixed reception, though it performed better with the general audiences than many critics initially expected from a mobile game adaptation. On Rotten Tomatoes, the site that every YouTuber discussing film is obliged to rely on, it sits squarely in mixed territory, both amongst critics and audience. To this day, nobody took issue with the animation, slapstick comedy, or vocal performances from the all-star cast. Perhaps expectedly, it was the plot and general cash grab nature of the whole film that these negative reviewers clung to. It is also these people who think that the second movie is absolute cinema by comparison, so perhaps they, along with their incorrect opinion, should be slingshot to the moon. Most Angry Birds fans will tell you, myself included, that the movie aged quite gracefully because of its story. Although it was not one-to-one with the established canon, the creative liberties it did take fit what they were trying to go for. See the whole Bird and Pig Island dynamic as a key example of what I'm talking about. Although the primary deviation and the main source of criticism from fans are more artistic direction related than anything, squarely focusing on the character designs. Unlike the games, the media, and all that hoopla, the characters now had limbs in order to express themselves and interact with the world around them. The talking really wasn't an issue. I mean, how else would they communicate? And it was already established in the comics that they could communicate with each other. It wouldn't make for a good film if they were just, making bird sounds and pig sounds, I guess. That would fly in Angry Birds Toons because those were shorts. I mean, this was a whole theatrical film. Due to this utility, as well as a tie to the films, they would go on to take the place of the iconic classic designs in pretty much all future media. Anytime they need a picture of an Angry Bird to represent the brand these days, it's one of the stock movie designs. We've seen them all. To me, the movie designs always felt like a convenient cop-out for animators and developers, so as to not have to work as creatively around the limitations of the originals. The core classic designs could be just as, if not more expressive if used to their potential, like they well demonstrated in Toons or some of the animated trailers. But had these movie designs stayed a movie-only thing, surely fans would look back upon this film more fondly. Because personally, when you ignore the film's lasting impact on the brand, the story in isolation is pretty much exactly what you would want to see. Set before the games, it seeks to establish why the birds and pigs became enemies in the first place, calling back to the game's roots in 2009. Why are the birds so angry?
To think about the brand of Angry Birds. So first time you hear the name, it's one of these brands that it begs for a question. Why are the birds angry? And I think that's great because then you're already there. People are starting thinking about your brand.
All of the main characters align quite well with their established characterization from Toons and the books that we mentioned. For the most part. I'll let you quibble with the Mighty Eagle being relegated to a washed-up recluse, and Stella's ability being changed to the arm pump.
Did he say eat the eggs?
And then there's the Blues being relegated to pretty much hatchling fodder for marketing. I mean, look, I didn't say there weren't any issues. But Red really carries the film with this snarky, pessimistic attitude, with Leonard acting as the perfect foil. There are little callbacks to the games here and there, with character cameos sprinkled in when appropriate. Financially, the film performed quite strongly worldwide, grossing over $350 million globally against a reported budget of around $70 million, which was more than enough to justify the sequel. From an industry perspective, that box office success was arguably more important than the critical reception itself, because it proved that a mobile game franchise could successfully translate into a theatrical animation. The Angry Birds movie was indeed the first. The consumer products sector of Rovio hit heights it had not reached in years thanks to the film, including the return of the brand's forefront licensee, Commonwealth toy. They had made the vast majority of Angry Bird products, including the most iconic Plush, back during its initial boom. Truly, they had never taken time off from the brand since 2010, but they had not made product for retail floors since 2014. And even then, it really wasn't even in America, at least outside of Justice stores, as we've established. When they got the opportunity to make toys for the film, they of course jumped on it, beginning development a full year ahead of the film's eventual release. Early on, they stuck to the typical convention of having 3 separate size offerings for the characters: backpack clips, 5-inch, and 8-inch. Characters they were intent on doing were of course the main cast, consisting of Red, Chuck, Bomb, Matilda, and Leonard. Other characters lingered or phased in and out during development, including Stella, an open-mouthed pig, a closed-mouthed pig, a Blue, Terrence, and much later, the Mighty Eagle. XI, or Chanzing Toys, or as you know them, HK98, would be the lone factory involved in development. Early 8-inch samples utilized material and techniques similar to that of the original line of Angry Bird toys, though these were amongst the most unsettling Angry Bird toys ever made. So that obviously wouldn't do.
Have you ever stolen anyone's children? Huh? Have you? I mean, you look like you would.
Later renditions started using felt cutouts with printed details for head and tail feathers, adding much more detail to the characters to match with the movie stills. Some samples are referred to as sitting on their hang tag, and they are indeed made in such a way where they can sit down with their legs stretched out. Others are not so limp, able to stand on their own given the correct surface. Not to stay complacent, they would also attempt some more outlandish concepts in keeping with tradition. The first example can be seen with this exploding bomb plush that reuses the technology from the Shakers from a few years back to simulate an explosion. Put in a few AAAs and press down the top to activate the feature. As a prototype, it also reuses the sounds from the original Angry Bird toys, although he is a bit temperamental. We lovingly call this one the Bomb vs. India sample. If you know, you know. Commonwealth never sold a trio of blues together, but seemingly the idea came up to make them 2-inch scale to sell them as a set, while maintaining the standard retail price point. Nice attention to detail with different eye embroidery and colors, so you can always tell apart Jade, Jake, and Jim. Final rounds of development in July 2015 ditched the traditional 5-inch and 8-inch size conventions, now calling them 7-inch and 11-inch scale respectively. The 7-inch were called bean bags despite not appearing to be different from production generally. They may have been full of weighted beans, but I don't really have a way of knowing that just by looking at the photo. This particular document shows part of the set lined up to the 2011 5-inch bomb, and perhaps most interestingly notes how much it cost to produce each character. 11-inch were called Plush Pals, and likewise sat next to a 2011 8-inch bomb for comparison. Meanwhile, the backpack clips were interestingly compared to the somewhat recent Stella from Justice or Rovio. The final cast of characters as of December 2015 appeared to be Red, Chuck, Bomb, Matilda, Stella, a Blue, Terrence, the closed-mouth pig, the open-mouth pig, and Leonard. Some of these supporting characters would only be produced in the smaller scale, while main characters would have more offerings including sound units, with quotes directly from the film. But we'll get into that momentarily. The first round of production for mass retail nearly mirrored that of the originals back in 2010, with an oddly specific and somewhat coincidental 349 day of 2015 batch made for Toys R Us in America. The 7-inch sets shipped to retail included Red, Chuck, Bomb, Matilda, Stella, a Blue, the Mighty Eagle, and Leonard. The 11-inch sets had Red, Chuck, Bomb, and the open-mouth pig, not Leonard for some reason, I guess they wanted it to be generic, all with special platforms including sound units.
Ta-da! Thanks for the left! Yeah, when birds fly. Drop your nuts and move your butts! Glad that's over. I don't think I have an anger issue, I think you got an anger issue. I'm really angry. Now who's angry? Do it! Is it bird flu? Chickenpox? Someone has anger issues. There's a new happiness exhibit at the Museum of Happiness. I don't know what happened. I was doing the poses. I was feeling all zen. Matilda was digging it. Then I lost my grip on it. Let it slip and it just squeaked out. If my name were Bobby, would you ask about my hobbies? Or if my name were Judas, would you ask me what my mood is? I laugh, I cry, I love, I hate. I do so much more than detonate. Think about it. This guy is good. Didn't mean to photobomb you, sorry about that. Not for you. Oh, not a hugger. We were hiding. Can we hide if we want to? Woo! Come on, Leonard. Oh, hi, friend. Hi, friend. We're all friends now. Hi, friend.
Rounding out the line, the backpack clip assortments had Red, Chuck, Bomb, Matilda, a Blue, and the closed-mouth pig. No sign of Terrence or the standard minion pig of either variety, at least in the main 7-inch scale, though as we know from past experience, perhaps they were couched for a later wave. A16 was the main production batch for the rest of retail, which mirrored the Toys R Us batches outside the label. Interestingly, I know the production numbers of both these batches that we've discussed, and I'll put them on screen right now. Though for specialty stores, there would also be offerings of Red, Chuck, Bomb, and in tradition, the Mighty Eagle in the jumbo scale, now called 28-inch. It's not really 28-inch, but, you know. Collector perception of this set historically has also been quite mixed, mirroring that of the film, with opinions ranging from, it's the most faithful set of plush to the film ever, to, I hate the movie designs and I will never collect these. I obviously fall into the first camp, though, as of recording I don't quite love them enough to display them amongst my others, mainly because I lack the shelf space. See, the classic era merchandise goes there, these are okay to reside inside my closet. Even so, these retain that same quality you would expect from Commonwealth in terms of material and QC, but the actual patterns certainly are hit or miss. Even the set's biggest supporters will concede that. What they got right with these undoubtedly were the mains, the most important ones. They appear nearly straight out of the film, especially in the larger scale I find. Zero quibbles with Red, Chuck, Bomb, Leonard, and to a lesser degree Matilda. Some are not fans of the plumage being felt, claiming that it looks cheap and makes them less huggable, but for me, I admire they tried something different to better capture the more detailed models in the film. A good bit of printing where they didn't have to is always appreciated. Stella is a bit chopped, as the kids say. God, I used that in the video. Ugh. Whew. No, don't say that ever again. The blues could do with having an actual beak instead of whatever this patch of embroidery is supposed to be. But let's talk about the Mighty Eagle. Certainly has a case to be one of the main characters in the film. Surely his plush is equally as glorious as the original.
No.
Some might be afraid to say this, but this right here, this thing, this abomination, is Commonwealth's worst plush of all time. Not just in this set, no. Not going to assert this amongst all Commonwealth plush ever, including samples, but it's certainly for production. His eye is on his beak. What am I supposed to do with that? Understandably, he looks close enough to the film, where he looks quite ridiculous anyways, giant belly included. Just feels like they could have done better on this one in particular. It's hard to put your finger on it. Material clash, the weird teeth on the beak, the black head feather blob, there's just, it's not done right. It's not it. The jumbo size is the way to go so he doesn't appear bald in the black regions, even if it doesn't actually fix the core issue with the plush. The materials on those are much nicer in hand, because as you see with all the 7-inch scale plush, they use matte fur. So indeed, the 11-inch and 28-inch upgrade to fluffy fur, which means that their fur cut is a tad longer, which is a common practice when upscaling plush, at least for Commonwealth. Smaller plush can appear too shaggy if you use a longer pile. Look no further than this 2010 development photo. Without ever seeing a 7-inch scale plush with that material, however, I cannot truly express my opinion on the matter.
I see all and know all. What are your names? Prepare to have your minds blown. Oh, there are 1,000 stories in the Hall of Heroism. Oh yeah. Behold, gazed upon, Mighty Eagle!
The backpack clips generally simplified some of the detail, with zero prints appearing on any of the plush aside from the minion, where the talons became a print rather than a stitched-in piece of felt, like you see on Leonard. I might as well take a look at Terrence while we're at it, despite it not making it to retail. 3 samples were made for each one of the core size variations. The smaller 2 I have in my possession, and the larger 11-inch size with Rovio in their Terrence meeting room. A few different brands took on Terrence back in 2016, though nobody made it quite like this one. His head and main body are basically 2 different sections of the pattern, owing to his unorthodox troll-like appearance in the movie. The head feathers are technically printed on the back side, as they naturally sit facing down, and unlike the Go Terrence sample, did get the spot patches embroidered about the body. There's also the tail, which features quite the design. And for those curious, that little piece of fuzzy material fastened to his leg is just a sample of the material used for said legs, for approval purposes. There was another character that was considered later in development, a pig simply referred to as the Cowboy Pig by Commonwealth, funnily enough. And although his official name is Earl of all things, this is the Blake Shelton Pig. The country music star, the film's prominent musical number, voicing this particular pig during the cowboy show segment. Apparently, he was such a marketing ploy that a plush was made of the character, which didn't come out half bad. It's similar to some of the other movie pigs, which bodes in its favor. The hat and jacket use that nylon material, popularized by the Star Wars plush we've looked at before. Though only the front opening of the jacket is three-dimensional, as the backside is integrated into the body. Granted, this would have ensured the accessory stayed securely attached to the toy, though takes away from the overall look. The movie's branding was amongst the most minimalist Rovio had ever put out, competing with the basic 2014 template in terms of simplicity. At its core, it's a white with black palette, accompanied by the infamous stock renders of the characters plastered here and there, as well as the new logo. Makes the PDQs, platforms, and hang tags appear quite plain, in stark contrast to the brand's roots back in 2010. For the film's home media released in August, including the DVD and Blu-ray, special edition box sets were distributed that bundled the film with a Commonwealth red plush. These were a new batch of red made specifically for this occasion, and a few different variations of the set exist for different markets. The American one being pretty much double the size of the international variation. There's a joke there, but I won't say it. Given the movie's success at the box office, as well as the new home media release, a second wave of plush was set for production. But this would not simply be a reproduction of the A16 originals, as unexpectedly, this batch was going to introduce a new plush to market. This time focusing on the hatchlings. God. The hatchlings. Unbelievably, we have not delved into these marketable furballs yet. They are, after all, one of the core aspects of the films that fans, I guess, generally despise. There are two of you out there who are hatchling enjoyers, and you two know exactly who you are. But hey, the YouTube analytics cannot lie. This is what the masses cared for, evidently. Top 10 hatchling moments, sign me up. Commonwealth at some point, whether prior to the initial wave or after is unbeknownst to anybody I've talked to, made a whole assortment of these things based on all the different colorations and designs from the movie. There were 12 distinct variations made in the old 5-inch scale, consisting of varying unique designs, colors aside, and made of shimmering long pile material. There were a couple of rounds of samples even before these, which I'll show on screen now. The ones with the glittery glass eyes are kind of interesting to me. Their stuffing was far more compressible than the standard plush, and none of them had those controversial felt feathers, making them far more huggable. Just don't tell that to the hug guy. The material used for the feathers is pretty much the same as the eagle's top feathers from before, though more appropriate here. They even made these backpack clip-sized ones that would be sold in these surprise eggs, illustrating their ambition to turn these pesky Hatchimals into a collectible. Ladies, get busy! We are laying some eggs tonight! Plans for that, along with a whole other set of beanies featuring even more hatchling variants, were ditched in favor of just making select colors into a smaller wave, and selling them alongside Red, Chuck, and Bomb. For those of you who didn't pick up on it, that means there are G16 variations of Red, Chuck, and Bomb. In Leonard 2, there's a whole Mix A and Mix B thing going on here. We can talk more about that in the future if more information is uncovered. Apparently, the colors of choice were blue, red, pink, and green. They do have names, but do I look like somebody who would care? Don't answer that. It was indeed quite nice to get what's essentially a redo of the blues, now with a proper stuffed beak, though goes to show you how Rovio was treating the characters at the time. Hatchling Red appears in a few scenes in flashback segments, so that one is at least somewhat understandable. This too may have its roots in the initial wave of plush, as there was a backpack clip of a red hatchling. It's not immediately identifiable as red by its facial features, though what other character uses this color? And yes, this one does date back to 2015 development, but only mentioning it now for scripting purposes. Enough of that tangent though, the pink and green appear to just be colors that complement the other two. I'm no psychology major, so I don't really know if there's more to it than that. I'm shocked they didn't manage to get the tan one out, considering it's the color prominently featured in most of the hatchling-centric marketing. Their wave would be created in July 2016, and ended up being far more scarce at retail compared to the earlier assortments, with most actually showing up at Dave & Buster's locations as redemption awards. They likely got them on the cheap after retailers passed them up, After all, it's no surprise that big box stores passed on a movie that already had its time on the shelves. When the wave did show itself, it brought a surprising fifth member alongside, a plush we briefly touched upon earlier, the closed-mouth pig, or Washington as he's famously known. You have wannabe Ross, Moocheek's dad, Blake Earl Shelton, and Eugene Washington IV. What a foursome. Just put these four on Mount Rushmore, that's where they belong. Certainly an unusual addition to the set, it's about as unrelated as a character can be from the others. And still no Terrence, this was probably its last shot at getting a retail release, but Washington was a welcome surprise. A rarity to this day, given they did not make nearly as many of these plush. One unsolved mystery related to movie plush as a whole ties back to this plush though, and this is one I can hope we can potentially solve with community feedback. There have been 1 or 2 examples of this plush showing up with a sound unit, placed directly in the middle of his chest. I even personally recall seeing a video of the feature in action, being the exact same one in the 11-inch open-mouth variation. I just don't have said video anymore. It is unfortunately... I'm not even gonna say... I'm not saying. This could potentially be the Sallow release, as an example of the 11-inch scale open-mouth pig with a K18 label has surfaced in the time since, marking another oddity in the set's history. If you have a sound-chipped 7-inch movie plush or one with a K18 label, shoot me an email or join the Discord. Would love to establish history. And so, there you have it. A comprehensive overview of the Angry Birds movie set. While it was nice to see Commonwealth get one last shot at being the forefront licensee for plush, and actually create new things, this being where things ended up for them at retail is bittersweet. Not to discredit what they managed to accomplish with these, most of them are quite the pleasant plush of their on-screen counterparts, and certainly better than what other rights holders in other markets managed to crank out on the whole. Though, to be fair and comprehensive as I self-proclaimed am, TCC Global's Movie 2 line was damn good. I've seen them all in person, and of course I think they're great. Their materials feel especially good in the hand. Maybe one day I look to reacquire them, they're not rare by any means. It's difficult to assess whether the Commonwealth ones did well in this period. They did get 4 separate production batches and 5 if you count the movie box sets, so they must have been somewhat successful, you would think. For international collectors though, it's a difficult set to get your hands on because it was all sold in America. The international markets got the aforementioned others. It's too bad they never ended up releasing arguably the finest plush in the set though, but that's the CWT way. So I ask you, are you a fan of the movie? Has your opinion changed at all over the years? And does it have any bearing on your feeling towards this plush set? I personally have always enjoyed both, and over the years they grow on me, culminating in my look at them today. That's a nice way to end the video, isn't it? Good happy note. Anywho, if you have any comments, questions, or complaints, you can let me know down in the comment section below. And with that I say, peace out.